Hey guys, how's it going? It's been a long time here. Been a busy couple months personally, but trying to get back into it here. Today I want to talk a little bit about Viserai and one of my favorite decks, and kind of the history of Viserai through the past couple years and the different sets that have come out and his playstyle and where that's led me kind of back around to the favorite deck that I've been playing a lot recently. Um, so what I call this deck is Turtleburst, and so as opposed to your traditional aggressive Viserai decks, this one kind of built up some rune chance and then kind of bursts out at the opponent. So hence the name here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say like the key card. The key card in this entire deck is Arknight Ascendancy. So this is a Viserai specialization, and you may wonder why you've never seen it before, or just seen pictures. This card art goes around a lot in the different like videos and streams where Viserai is just floating here on the Arknight Ascendancy card. But when you're playing in games in person on Talishar, like you just never see anyone play it. And there's some reasons for that. I think most importantly, it's like the cost is 6, which seems pretty big, but it does have rune chant reduction, so it costs 1 less to play for each rune chant that you control. Um, the Yeah, so that's a key part of this. As I said, like the whole point of the deck is kind of building up rune chance, basically to make cards like this free, and then attacking your opponent in a large burst that they can't handle all at once. So the other reasons why this is the key card are the other two lines of text on this. One is dominate, so it's just a 5 attack. But through various methods you can buff this up, and lastly the keyword dominate here. So what you're trying to do with this card is buff it up as much as possible, and then land damage with it. For if it hits, create X rune chant tokens, where X is the damage dealt by Arknight Ascendancy. So basically, each damage that you do, you're essentially multiplying by 2. So, this kind of plays into the strategy with the deck. Is you buff this up, you land big damage, and you get paid back. You have that many rune chants on the back end, and then basically you can do it again and again if you're lucky. But all right, so I will say I've been playing this deck kind of for a long time here and there, just as like a janky fun deck. And like each set that comes out, maybe you get like 1, 2 more cards that you can slap in the deck and see if it works. But this deck kind of goes back to the original way that Viserai was played. And so I was thinking about it, and a lot of you guys out there may have started later in, say, Monarch, Tales of Aria, Uprising, even more recently. So you might not know about the history. So I wanted to take you through a little bit of history for Viserai, and then maybe you can understand my emotional attachment to this deck. Because when I started playing, it was Crucible of War had just come out, but the unlimited Crucible of War wasn't available yet. So the Crucible of War cards were like super expensive. Crucible of War really kind of busted Viserai's playstyle wide open. But anyways, let's go back to the roots. I've kind of gone back. I I went back and searched. A lot of you might be familiar with Fabrary, but before Fabrary, there was another website that was commonly used, and that was FabDB. Now you can still use FabDB, of course, but I've moved over to Fabrary, and a lot of people have. But you can find the really old deck list if you search FabDB, and you see some names on there. Jacob Pearson, for example. Ian Kinderdine. Some of these names are kind of famous back from the start, and some of these people work for LSS and such now. But anyway, so if you take a look at the list here, it's not very easy to go through. There's not that many, you got to go through to see the images one by one. So I took a couple decks from FabDB and just converted them over to Fabrary because it's an easier layout to take a look at the deck list. So anyways, to understand Arknight Ascendancy, right? It's a specialization for Viserai. It's kind of like his main specialization. So, really, I miss using the card. And originally, that was kind of what you built your deck around. So nowadays, like Viserai is a lot more aggro. Play non-attack, play an attack with go again, and then swing a sword. But originally, the card pool, there wasn't a ton of stuff available to you, so you had to play with what you had. And you get a lot of these interesting cards, like Enchanting Melody. I'm having trouble zooming in. Okay. I wish you could pull up the red one here, but this card is basically like, it has Ward 3. It's a non-attack that costs 2, and depending on the color, it gives you basically Ward 4, 3, or 2. It has Go Again, so you can play this into another runeblade card, and that triggers Viserai's ability. So originally, a lot of people use this card to kind of set up some rune chant generation, but also give you a little bit of protection that can kind of keep you safe while you're trying to build up more rune chants. The text, if you have not played a non-attack this turn, then this gets destroyed. So potentially you can keep this around if you block out your opponent's damage, and then play another non-attack, like Read the Runes, something like that. Anyways, that's not exactly why we're here right now. So if you'll notice in this list, like there's a bunch of cards that help you generate rune chants, and there were not a ton available originally. So Read the Runes is going to be your main one, and then Oath of the Arknight also generates 1 rune chant. So what you would do is just get up to basically enough to make your Arknight Ascendancy free, and then you would play a buff card like Come to Fight. The next attack action card you play gains +3. The Oath of the Arknight, ideally, because you make a rune chant and give your next runeblade attack +3, costs 1 more. But basically, you could pitch a blue, play a Come to Fight, still have 2 float, play Oath of the Arknight, and basically you're going to get +6 on your next attack, and you just throw the Arknight Ascendancy from there. Then it would be coming in for 11 with Dominate, and 6+ rune chants. That's a 4-card hand. Like it's pretty resource intensive. So a lot of when you're playing this deck, you actually are going to be defending quite a bit, just to kind of preserve your life total, so that when you get basically a mini combo like this set up, then you can take some damage and then still throw back your attack, your buffed attack. Naturally, a good card that works into this like buffed attack with dominate is Pummel here. So sometimes you might just throw your Arknight Ascendancy for 5 and then attack react with a Pummel, and then that'll go up to 9. So maybe your opponent blocks for 2 with armor and then 3 with a card from hand, and you get like some surprise factor from the Pummel they have to discard. The other card that generic card that we used to play back in that time was Slogism, which is pretty awesome, to be honest. If you're going into a dominate, you pay 3, you pitch a blue for this non-attack, and the next attack action card would cost 2 or more, gains +6. So you throw a Slogism into an Arknight Ascendancy. Well, it's basically your Slogism and a blue equal like to the buff that you got from playing two of these other buffs, coming in for the same attack value, like coming in for 11 with dominate. It's pretty awesome. I'm not sure why. Well, I can tell you why this is a risky card to play, because basically it's a 2-block, and it does require a blue, so you got to make sure you have enough blues in your deck. This particular deck list doesn't have a whole lot in there, but like I said, when you're trying to like block damage to set up a combo like this, like having 2 blocks in your deck just doesn't feel really great. So anyways, this is what the deck also ran like Command and Conquer, just because you're running the Pummels, so it's already a good combo. Like you see attacks like this, and you kind of think, okay, this is like a little bit more of a Bravo playstyle. Like you're just gonna play, you're just looking to play like 1 attack per turn potentially, but you want it to be a big one. So you play quite defensively and just build up rune chance. This deck actually played Tome of Fyendal. Again, limited card pool, so you could do some interesting things if you time snap potion into a Tome of Fyendal. You gain some life, and then because this is a non-attack, if you play like a rune chant generator after that, you actually you're triggering Viserai's ability to make rune chants, and you're making more. You're gaining that life, which preserving your life total was like a really big deal. So you could set up these big combos, and sometimes sometimes your deck, depending on your opponent, if you're playing against a Bravo, they have a ton of armor, so like one Arknight Ascendancy, if they just hold like a red unmovable in Arsenal and then have some armor up, like it's going to be incredibly difficult to push damage, especially if they just kept using the defense reacts. Basically, you're blocking out most of your damage. So what you would want to do in that case is basically not attack at all. Just generate as many rune chants as you could with like Mordred Tide, and to read the runes, play defensively with your reduced to rune chants to make rune chants that way. And then it's almost like an OTK strategy when you're going against Guardians. So the interesting thing was, back in the day of like Arcane Rising, you didn't really have that many runechant generators. So if you had to block with some, you might just not get enough runechants through the course of the entire game to pull off your OTK strategy. So anyways, as we move on, you kind of get more and more cards that allow you to generate rune chants, so that you can kind of reach your like critical mass of rune chants more quickly. And that's why each set with runeblade cards that comes out, I always kind of re-examine this deck and see if it's a viable strategy. Sorry, so let's move on to kind of the next iteration of Viserai. So, we'll go to the Crucible of War era here. Crucible of War added some really strong cards for Viserai. The Bloodsheath Skeleta, which basically, a lot of you might be familiar with it, but you can break this. It has Temper 2, so for one, it's good for the defensive value. Just a 2 block and then a 1 block. You almost never use a 1 block because you're going to use the ability. But it's Destroy Bloodsheath Skeleta. The next attack action card and non-attack action card you play this turn gains basically rune chant reduction. Costs 1 less to play for each rune chant you control. So I was just telling you about that Slogism combo. And you could break the Bloodsheath Skeleta to reduce the cost of your Slogism to 0, and you would play that. And then, you could throw your Arknight Ascendancy after that, or whatever. It just allowed you to do some really crazy things, especially with the addition of some cards in the following sets. So that's just like one piece. The Reaping Blade, I think they added this because lots of opponents. I talked about Bravo just there. Bravo is one of the toughest matchups for an OTK strategy. So, what Bravo would do is basically play 3 Sigils of Solace and just kind of chill and set up defense, try and crush you as much as possible before you can get like an OTK, amount of rune chants set up. So that basically when you want to try and do your big pop-off turn, Bravo has 49 life plus, Arcanite Skullcap. It's only 1 if he's at higher life. The Tectonic Plating and the Crater Fist. So that's like 4 extra block there. Basically, Bravo would be sitting at like 54 life by the time you got set up to do your big turn. The Reaping Blade was nice because if you had less life than your opponent, they cannot gain life. So if you'd taken damage from an Othos or whatever just once, even 1 damage, basically their Sigils of Solace are turned off for the entire game. So that was like a really important piece for the OTK strategy. But so the problem with Viserai in Arcane Rising was it was really hard to get go again on your attacks in a relevant way, and then go into an attack with your weapon after that. So you could use Lead the Charge, which would, that would give you an action point, so you can go into your weapon, your Nebula Blade, after attacking. But Mauvrian Skies made it so the attacks, basically your Runeblade attacks have go again, and they have an on hit thanks to the Mauvrian Skies, which is make more rune chants. So this totally lets you play like a different strategy, where you could do a Mauvrian Skies into an attack, and then, if it hit on the back side of that attack, you have 3-4 rune chants potentially, and then you can play some of the cards from there that have rune chant reduction for free, and you can really start to set up like string along some more aggressive turns with Mauvrian Skies. Rattlebones, another crazy card. This is another key card that kind of lets you play. It kind of feeds into your end game if you are playing Turtleburst strategy or an OTK strategy. if you're sending like 10 rune chants or 15 rune chants, odds are they're not gonna prevent all of the arcane and then ignore your attack as well. So this says if you have dealt arcane, you can play this to an opposing hero this turn. You may play Rattlebones as though it were an instant. So as we know, a common runeblade trick is if you play a non-attack as an instant, but it has go again, it still generates an action point. So if we take this to our Arknight Ascendancy strategy with the buffing Arknight Ascendancy, let's say you sent off like 10 rune chants, they took one rune chant, and say you had a buffed Arknight Ascendancy. If you're generating 6 rune chants on the end of this attack, because some of the damage hit, you could then go ahead and play Rattlebones, banish the Arknight Ascendancy, and just play it again for free because you have an action point from playing Rattlebones as an instant. And that is basically the combo that we want to abuse whenever it lines up. So another addition from Crucible of War was Runeblood Barrier, and I've hated this card for a long time because it's a 2-block, it's yellow, and it costs 3, so it's pretty expensive. And then what this card does is it does make 4 rune chants, so that's good. But if you take any damage during your opponent's turn, basically you're losing the rune chants that you just created. But recently I've come back around on Runeblood Barrier because if you're playing against opponents that can chip away at your rune chants or chip away at your life total with, like, say, Kodachis, etc., you might just need a little breathing room to draw into your combo, like Arknight Ascendancy and a buff. So you go above the amount of rune chants you need to play Arknight Ascendancy for free, and then as long as you can take some damage after playing out a Runeblood Barrier, and then as long as you maintain about 6 rune chants, you'll be able to do a combo with Arknight Ascendancy for free still. But one reason why this was important is, like I was saying in Arcane Rising, there just wasn't that many rune chant generators, like Read the Runes. So when they added Runeblood Barrier, that gives you like some additional options to make more rune chants and kind of employ an OTK strategy if you wanted to. So Crucible of War really opened up like both play styles. So it lets you kind of play into the OTK strategy a little bit more with Runeblood Barrier and Reaping Blade. But also, if you wanted to, it lets you play a more aggressive strategy. And then added a bunch of good on hits like Consuming Volition. That's if your opponent's taking Arcane and this hits, discard a card. Meet and Greet is another one that's where if your opponent's taking Arcane damage, it gains go again. So that's basically where we were in Crucible of War. Then from there, I think we go... The next one I have on the list is Everfest, but the thing that I should really talk about is Rosetta Thorn. So this came out in Tales of Aria, and when I saw this weapon, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like exactly what Viserai needed to be able to close out games. Because, and you see, if you're playing Viserai right now, and then if you've played since we've lost Rosetta Thorn, then you will know what I'm talking about. But just doing the split damage of 2 arcane plus 2 physical is like really difficult for your opponent to deal with. And Reaping Blade is just, it's 1 less damage, and it's just a solid 3 physical. So basically that's a 1 card block for your opponent. So with Reaping Blade, it was like really difficult to get damage through. Nebula Blade also cost 2. It was a little bit more expensive. and easier to block. A little bit easier to block. But yeah, really, Nebula Blade causes you to play kind of a one cost. I would say encourages you to play a one cost Viserai, and so the one cost attacks actually just don't quite do as much damage. So a lot of them at red are threatening 4 damage. And then sometimes you have to just play a lot of the like blue attacks and other things that just don't really push that many on hit effects and just don't chip through damage as efficiently. So yeah, it's funny if you go back to this list, you can see this is like Arcane Rising 3 years ago. Look at the weapon Nebula Blade. 3 years ago, Nebula Blade and Reaping Blade. Then Reaping Blade. Then as soon as Rosetta comes out, like watch the deck results. It's like Reaping Blade, a little bit, but Rosetta, and then Reaping Blade just kind of disappears because this weapon was so good that, quite frankly, it's just the best way to play Viserai more aggressively for the longest time. Okay. So on that note, you're playing with Rosetta for a while, and then when Everfest came out, there were just so many good cards for runeblade. It was insane. So the 2 most notable ones are Swarming Gloomveil. 0 cost, can be a 0 cost 3 attack with Gogan, can be a 0 cost 4 attack with Gogan, can be a 0 cost 4 attack with an on hit. This is maybe one of my favorite cards that have ever been printed in the game. The second, Revel in Runeblood. I think Flake and some other people have made lists of the most hated card, and Revel in Runeblood made the top of the list. But 0 cost, if you played a non-attack and an attack, make 4 rune chance. In Viserai, that's a 0 for 5 rune chance because you trigger Viserai's ability. Card's awesome. But the most important one was just the Shrill of Skullform, because this, if you've made an aura, which you always do if you're playing basically a Mavrian Skies, then you play the Shrill. You pitch a blue to pay 2, and you have you've got a 7 attack here because it gains +3, and you've generated 1 rune chant, and then you spend your last resource to swing with Rosetta, and at that point you have the 7 from a red Shrill plus like 2 and 2 and 1. It's like a 3 card 12. It's like just great amount of damage presented, and did I do it right? Yeah. And it's all split in awkward breakpoints. So a 7, a packet of 2 arcane from the Rosetta. It's just really hard for your opponents to deal with the split damage. So this is basically, and you might remember there were some memes that came out that's like, oh, Viserai, what a boring deck. You just play Mavrian Skies into Shrill into Rosetta. It's like, how unique, how I've never seen that play before. But yeah, I mean, that's the most powerful thing you can do. But honestly, that's not really the reason why I enjoy playing Viserai so much. It's more all the interesting choices that you have with every turn with cards. Rattlebones, become the Arknight, drawn to the Dark Dimension, the addition of the Spellbound Creepers that lets you, play non-attacks as an instant. So, anyhow, as I was saying, as you see from the Rosetta Thorn here, that like aggressive playstyle was just kind of the main way you have played Viserai for the longest time. And let me just see. Yeah, so that's like the type of Viserai that basically everyone's been playing until the rise of the Rangers and Outsiders. And I'll just pull up like the deck I was playing recently. Like the Mauve Shrill Rosetta was pretty much like a good enough play pattern that you could compete with anyone aggressively. And even the like ninjas, they don't want to block, so you have the on hits. And additionally, they just don't want to pitch to Arcane that much as well, because a lot of them are redline. So really, that was enough. That was like enough damage to compete with anyone. Basically, until Lexi came around and Azalea, where Azalea, can get you in a loop if you're not playing defensively, where you're just going to get red in the ledger. And Viserai and other runeblades, their power scale when they play multiple cards per turn, 3 cards, and then especially if they have 5 cards to do things with. But when you can only play 1 attack, like your damage ceiling is pretty drastically reduced. Most of the time you're just going to get like an Amplified the Arknight off, Runic Reclamation maybe, like a couple of rune chants and a 7 attack, which is not what you want to be doing. And that's the same reason why Warmonger's Diplomacy is affects the consistent damage output of the rune blades. So basically, in order to give us a chance against Lexi, we had to race as much as possible. So that's when basically we've moved to playing the Crown of Dominion and cash in. And you hope you pull a cash in quickly enough, and you hope that Lexi doesn't have enough disruption to stop you from playing it out and have a huge damage turn, which sometimes they can be like 20 to 30 damage in a turn, especially if you have Mordred Tide to go after your cash in, multiple attacks, maybe a Revel, tons of rune chants. Basically, you're just trying to high roll your opponents. And that was mainly for Lexi, because you just want to see that before they see their 3 of a kinds, which are basically their damage spikes. But they had multiple damage spikes per game with 3 of a kinds and the Rain Razors. Whereas Viserai, you just basically had one real spike turn with cash in, because once you use your gold, you're kind of out of luck, and you hope not to see the other cash ins for the rest of the game. So that's basically we were living on a prayer, and it was a viable strategy. Like, I took this deck to the Columbus Battle Harden a couple months ago, when Rosetta was still around, and I did fairly well. I was just out of the top 8. I went 5-2 overall. Lost to Alexi. Also played a similar list at the Chicago Battle Harden. And the interesting thing was I played 2 Lexis my first 2 rounds, and I in my first 3 rounds, I should say, and I won both those games off of just some really nutty Mordred Tide turns. So Rosetta Thorn was like really essential to Viserai's game plan. It really pushed him into that, like, okay, we can finish games now. Especially versus the Guardians, presenting that awkward damage split. Because so now we've had two big losses that kind of affect our game plan into Guardian. So the first was actually the Bloodseed Skeleton that I was talking about before. But with Bloodsheath Skeleta, you could sit back and generate rune chants, and then Bloodsheath Skeleta, Sonata Arcanix, draw a ton of cards, send a lot of arcane damage, and it was, it was a way to overwhelm your opponent with just too much damage in one turn. And you could do this to any, it's not just the Guardian matchups that will, die to this game plan. So I think that that was the Bloodsheath Skeleta and Sonata Arcanix was our damage spike back in the days of Starvo and Prism. Whereas now it's Crown of Dominion and Cash In. So that was the first loss that kind of hurt that matchup, but you could still get the split damage with Rosetta to finish off those types of games. Then recently Briar Living Legend, and we lost Rosetta. So basically, here we are. Viserai's kind of like wandering around trying to figure out where he's from and what he's doing again. So we're picking up, the natural, the first kind of strategy that you try and move towards is just replacing the Rosetta Thorn with the Reaping Blade. Same exact list. Play the Crown, play the Cash In, and just play the Reaping Blade. And after trying it out for a couple weeks, most people are probably in the same boat as me. You really can't finish. You can't finish the games. It's quite difficult unless you are running a lot of the rune chant generators like this Deathly Duet, Spellblade Assault, that help you kind of still present split damage that's difficult for your opponents to deal with. But now it's just each rune chant is a single source. So as long as your opponent's running AB1, they pitch a blue, they can, capture most of that arcane damage coming through. And then just block out the physical. Just a simple 3 blocks out a Reaping Blade. So Reaping Blade is kind of, it's there, but it's not winning us games. The other thing is the Dromai matchup has recently got much, much tougher, because we rely on arcane damage to finish out, basically to kill Dromai, because she has so many reds and it's difficult to pitch into. So really in that matchup, the Mauvrian Skies and just hitting dragons to generate rune chants is your best way to win that match. But oddly enough, the margins were still pretty low. So attacking a dragon and getting the 2 arcane damage from Rosetta, it just kind of really added up over the game. If it was 10 turns, 15 turns, really help you punch through quicker. So longer the Dromai matches go, the worse your odds are, the more value they're gonna get out on the board as permanents, and you're just dead basically. So seeing that this is probably not a top tier strategy right now, that's when I started going, you start going back to, let's check out, where the other decks that Viserai might be able to play. It's if that one's going to produce mediocre results, why not play another deck that produces similar results, but is a lot more fun to play? And that's the one with the Arknight Ascendancy and the pummels and all the buffs. So, let me go through some of the cards in this Turtleburst Viserai deck that I built, and kind of explain what I'm trying to do. Again, I kind of introduced the general strategy at the beginning of the video here, but what you want to do is build up enough rune chants quickly just to get the reduction on the Arknight Ascendancy, And then once you're able to buff this and attack with it, it's in the graveyard. You can recur it with Rattlebones. You can draw into another Arknight Ascendancy, play another one. You kind of chew through your opponent's armor until basically the dominate means that this card is definitely going to hit. And I think the concept behind how you could be successful with this deck is like you're going to take chip damage turn after turn because the game right now is a pretty aggressive game, and there's, the card pool is pretty wide. Like there's a lot of ways for opponents to hit you with awkward breakpoints, weird on hits. You're gonna Azalea is really strong. She's got dominate, so you're gonna take some damage. So to offset that damage that you've taken while you're trying to build up the rune chance to get your big attack off, you are trying to make as many rune chants with the on hit from Arknight Ascendancy as you can. As I mentioned before, each damage that you do is actually worth 2 damage in the form of the rune chant that's made on the back end. So I tried this with Reaping Blade for a while, but to be honest, like sometimes you're going to draw into hands where you just don't have any rune chant generation. But the nice thing about this card, Scepter of Pain, is you can pitch those cards to basically just ping your opponent and say, all right, the important thing is it doesn't trigger the rune chance that you've already made, and it asks your opponent, do they want to pay a card from hand to prevent 1 damage, and then you generating 1 rune chant as well. So, as I mentioned before, like each set that's come out, like with Runeblade cards, they've been kind of drip feeding us a lot of cards that allow you to produce rune chants. So I think I'll just kind of go through those really quickly. Read the runes. This is just the classic 0 cost. So good. 1 card hand. Make 3 rune chants. It's great. Runeblood Incantation is the next one that LSS introduced, where it's kind of like a 1 cost read the runes that sticks on the board, but it just makes your 3 rune chants over the next 3 turns. So I think you're paying the 1 resource for the go again on this card. The nice thing about the Runeblood Incantation is that you can pay, like you can pitch a blue into a Runeblood Incantation and then come in with the Scepter of Pain because it costs 2, because you'll have 2 floating after the Runeblood Incantation. So, it's just another way to kind of get more rune chants more quickly. Also, Runeblood Incantation allows you to combo into other non-attacks that will trigger Viserai's ability to make more rune chants. So, for example, maybe you play a Mordred Tide into a Runeblood Incantation into a Become the Arknight, discarding an attack to get a Read the Runes. That's just a ton of rune chants. If you get a turn like that, like early on, then you're basically just set. Even if it's just like Mordred Tide, Runeblood Incantation into Read the Runes, you're basically set. So you're just, after that, you're just looking for Arknight Ascendancy and some buff cards. I do have a couple Runeblood barriers in the deck, and those, like, I go back and forth on those. I'm like in the deck, out of the deck. But it is kind of nice if you can manage to block out your opponent's next turn without losing a rune chance, then like a 4 rune chance is pretty darn good. Become the Arknight helps you search for your rune chant generating cards. So that's use number 1 if you don't have many rune chants yet. The second use is you can discard a non-attack action to go find your Arknight Ascendancy. If you're ready to go ahead and trigger your rune chants off. You can go search. These tutor cards are really awesome. I think it was the series, like each hero from Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising has a card like this. For example, Azalea, Knock the Death Whistle, Reinar's Sand Sketch Plan, which is interesting. Doranthia, Singing Steelblade, right? Anyways, each hero kind of has one, and they carried that over a little bit into, for example, Monarch, where you could use Beacon of Victory to go search for a card. Tutor ability, just fantastic. In Viserai, this is a blue. It's a block 3. It's got Go Again. Like, this is just... There's never going to be a Viserai deck where you don't want to have 3 of these in your deck. Okay. Let's chat for 1 second about Sonata Phantasmia. I did a stream where we built a deck and we kind of tested it out. It wasn't live on Talishar at that point, but since then I've gone back, I added the Phantasmias, and I've done a lot of testing with them. Be honest with you, I'm not sure. This may be just like a living legend card for Viserai, some fan service to make a big combo with the Bloodchief Skeleton. The text on here, XX, create X rune chant tokens. If X is 6 or greater, target hero discards 3 random cards. Basically, this requires Sonata Phantasmia to be arsenaled, and then you to draw into 4 blue cards, and then also not block for an entire turn from your opponent while you're looking to pay this to make 6 rune chants and have them discard 3 random cards. What I'm trying to say here is, like, you are absolutely never trying to play into this discard effect. But that doesn't mean the card is bad. Because it's a blue 3 block, regrettable that it doesn't have Go Again, but sometimes you might block with like 1 or 2 cards, and you still want to, you have Sonata in Arsenal, you just pitch 2 blue cards, declare X as 3, and then you're still making 3 rune chants, which is not bad. If you're desperate, it's like a super expensive Read the Runes. But Read the Runes is red and it blocks for 2. So another interesting thing is, like, if you play a Mordred Tide, again, you're desperate, you play a Mordred Tide into a Sonata, Viserai will trigger, making 1+1 rune chant 2. Sonata's text, even if you don't pay into it, you declare X as 0. It says create X rune chants. So Mordred Tide still will make X +1 rune chant. So basically, again, if you're desperate, you play a Mordred Tide into a Sonata, you're getting 3 rune chants out of it at the end. So it's like a 2-card red Read the Runes, but it's blue and it blocks for 3 again. So yeah, I kind of like it because you do need a decent number of blue cards in case you're paying for tax, for various taxes. And then also I do have Slogism in here, so you want to pitch a blue into Slogism to buff your Arknight Ascendancy attack. And then also what I mentioned about like the Runeblade incantation, if you pitch a blue, you have 2 floating, and you can go into the Scepter of Pain, threaten more rune chant generation. Oath of the Arknight, a classic. You play a Mordred Tide into Oath of the Arknight blue. Triggers Viserai to make 2 rune chants, 1+1, and then just the text create a rune chant will make 1+1 rune chant. So Mordred Tide into this, and that's you 4 rune chants. It's not bad. Has Go Again. You could play or Read the Runes after that or something, and yeah, you're sitting pretty. I'll talk a little bit about the buff cards that I do have in here. Pummels, I've landed on basically just 2 because, as I mentioned before, we still do need to play defensively in order to set up our mini combo. So just 2 pummels in the deck, but man, if you land a pummel, your opponent feels bad, especially on the Arknight Ascendancy. Runic Reckoning, this card, if you're building up rune chants, it's free. Buffs your Arknight Ascendancy by 3, and it's a 3 block. So the 3 block is pretty big. It's kind of like a come to fight that's basically free in runeblade. So I like this card a lot. So if you think about like Slogism, you pitch a blue into it, that's a 2 card plus 6. If you're playing Runic Reckoning, you play 2 Runic Reckonings, that's also a 2 card plus 6. But it's also a runeblade action, so the second one you play is going to make a rune chant off of Viserai. So not bad at all. All right, what we have here is the pummels, Runic Reckoning, the Slogisms, and what I currently have in here is Smashing Good Time, because dash is really, I should say mech is really prevalent right now. And let me tell you what, if you're playing against a dash, one of the hard counters to this deck is if dash is playing defensively, just setting up pistols and trying to shoot you again and again with pistols. If you don't have a Smashing Good Time to kind of take care of the induction chambers, you're going to lose that game. You're just going to lose. So the nice thing about, I really like this card. If you put it in Arsenal, you get your +3 for Arknight Ascendancy. The other thing you can do if you're a runeblade is attack with something, no matter what it may be. And if it looks like your opponent's just going to take the damage, you can activate the Spellbound Creepers, then play Smashing Good Time as an instant, and you're going to be blowing up one of their items out of nowhere. If they have a D react, this card does have Go Again, so if you have another attack in hand, Smashing Good Time is good until the end of turn. So if you come in with another attack, if you played it from Arsenal, your next attack gains +3, and then you just come in again. Success rate is pretty high with Smashing Good Time on blowing up items. So I'm kind of shuffling around the sideboard a little bit currently, but Smashing Good Time, I think I like 3. I have 2 in this current list, but I would probably add 1 more. Now, if mech was not prevalent at all, I'm taking the Smashing Good Times out, and I'm just going to throw in red Come to Fight, because it is a 3 block, and you get the +3 regardless of if it's played from Arsenal or not. Defensive cards. Reduce to Rune Chant red. Just amazing if you're stacking Rune Chants. Basically a 0 for 5 because it has Rune Chant reduction. So you get 4 block out of it and you make 1 Rune Chant. So that's basically 5 value for 0. On that same logic, you can even play the yellows. You get 3 block, make 1 Rune Chant, and it's a 0 for 4, you know. Sink Belows. Helps you cycle, fix your hand, Sink Below. I don't think we need to talk about that card that much. It's just a good card. Okay, this is where the sideboard is like, I'm still messing around with the sideboard, but if you expect lots of ninjas, that all you got, maybe try and block and get a card back into your hand when the combat chain is destroyed. Also pretty good versus like pistol dash. And right now, honestly, I think in the current meta, you need some big blocks, some unmovables, because Azalea is incredibly strong. Just got the Bullseye Bracers back after the Lexi ban. And also Bravo is, not gonna lie, Bravo is one of your toughest matchups with this deck, because Bravo has a ton of good crush effects, and the dominate turn after turn makes it really difficult for you to enact your game plan. So I think Unmovables I think it definitely needs to be in this list, and probably needs to be in a lot of other deck lists in the current meta. Okay, so I talked about basically, like I said, I'm just going to give you the hard counters for this deck. Dash with items, it's pretty tough because if things start to get out of hand, they're getting some items out. You're gonna have to send an attack and blow your rune chance. If it's a boost, if it is a mech that boosts, you're just gonna put in all your 3 blocks. Put in Carapace for temper 2, and he's just gonna block everything, and then your opponent's gonna run out of cards. It's easy. But dash, traditional dash, you got to be careful because you never know what they're gonna do. Are they gonna try and boost a lot, or are they gonna run the pistols? So it's tricky. You have to run both your, defense reactions, but you also have to sideboard in the smashing good time and just be ready to toss your rune chance with an attack if you feel like, anytime you feel like you can sneak in the smashing good time item destruction. That's a bad one. Bravo's really tough. They have so much armor. Hey, look, I buffed my Arknight Ascendancy. Let's say we gave it +6, which is pretty standard for this deck. Coming in for 11, they can block with, say, one card from hand, 3, and they have Crown of Providence, an extra 2, chest piece, 2, arms, 2, that's 6. +3 is 9. If they're playing the boots with the quicken boots, basically that full blocks your buffed Arknight Ascendancy with no trouble. So with Bravo, I think it's important to try and get like one Arknight Ascendancy out really quickly, and just kind of burn through some of their armor, and then build chance up, do it again. So yeah, it's kind of it's a paradox, because traditionally with Guardian you want to try and OTK to send as much damage at once as you can, but I think that if you just sit back and do nothing, then they're just gonna like dominate, crush effects repeatedly, turn after turn. So Bravo's a tough one, and if you guys play this list or have a similar idea and you have thoughts about how to be Bravo, let me know. Azalea can be tough, but I think because you're running so many defense reactions, you can totally get it done. They don't have that much armor. And the last really bad matchup is Dromai. And since Dromai came out, there's been cards that have come out like Looming Doom. And anytime you see cards like this, it just kind of makes you want to build a Viserai that like builds up rune chance and then is more defensive and does like an OTK strategy. But let me tell you what, if you're not blowing up dragons each turn, then Dromai is just going to build an incredible board state with multiple dragons that'll just tear you down and get so much value. So let me talk about that matchup for like 1 second. Poppers, Amplify the Arknight, good one. It has the rune chant reduction if you ever need to send off rune chants. If you're playing like an OTK, good in any matchup. You can just play it and send off your rune chants if you need to. Notice I'm not playing like Reaping Blade, so if you don't have an attack, you can't send your rune chance if you're going OTK. So poppers amplify the Arknight 3. Ninth Blade 3. This is a good way to just throw out overwhelming damage. Like if you Slogism a Ninth Blade, that's 15 physical, and then whatever rune chance you got coming. So that's a way to finish the game. So lots of times I'll Arknight Ascendancy, have some rune chance on the back end, and then you can Ninth Blade. And just for huge damage to try and finish off a game. To be honest with you, I want to be playing Arknight Ascendancy every single time, just for the kind of like multiplicative value of the damage on hit. Other 6 attacks, Runic Reclamation. Currently have 3 of these in the deck because this is maybe the most important card you can have versus Icelander if you're trying to win that game and you can threaten their setup auras. This card is like super important. Also, 7 attack. So pops dragons. That's 9 between Amplify, Ninth Blade, Runic Rec, and then I have 3 more that I would consider. Like if Icelander is not a problem, I might sub out the Runic Reclamations and put in like Amnesia. Amnesia is really good. This was a recommendation from a buddy around here, also a Viserai player. But he was like, yeah, if you threaten Amnesia to a ninja, then they can't search for any cards with the hero ability. It's a 3 block, it's a 6, it's a popper, so I think it might be interchangeable with Runic Reclamation. It's something for consideration. Really aggressive ninjas is like the other kind of poor matchup, I would say, for this deck. Like you do have a lot of defense, but depending on how aggressive, how many breakpoints, how many attacks they're sending out, threatening like card draw or Katsu ability to search for like bonds. Sometimes you just don't have enough room to breathe to play out your read the runes or things like that. So anyways, the game plan against Dromai is traditionally with a more aggressive build, it's arcane damage. So the nice thing about Arknight Ascendancy is it doesn't say if Arknight Ascendancy hits a hero. It says if Arknight Ascendancy hits. So you can slap a dragon, and if you have Slogism and Arknight Ascendancy and you throw it into a dragon, first they have to deal with all the rune chance you're triggering, but none of that damage gets blocked. So basically you're making 11 more rune chance off the back of that dragon on hit. So one way I try to tackle Dromai is basically trying to throw Arknight Ascendancy into it and then just trigger as many rune chance as possible. Another one, a good one classically against Dromai was that's why I run the Dread Triptych here. So you play a Mordred Tide and then you throw a Dread Triptych, which is 4 attack, into a dragon like Kyloria, Miragai. You're just producing so many rune chance because it triggers 1+1 for playing a non-attack. If you deal arcane, if Dromai blocks any of the rune chance or doesn't block any of the rune chance coming in, makes 2 rune chance. If this hits, which it will because you're attacking a dragon, it's going to make 2 rune chance, and then the Viserai trigger as well. So you're looking at probably like 8 rune chance off just a Mordred Tide into a Dread Triptych into a dragon. It's pretty good, and then you're set up for your next attack where you want to be, either managing dragons while sending rune chance or whatever it may be. Looming Doom is the other one. I find if you can get one of these established pretty quickly in the game, say say you have 6 to 8 rune chants and you play a Looming Doom. At the end of your turn, you can deal 2 arcane damage to any target. So you can have this going on in the background at the end of each turn, and you can just kind of manage dragons with a Looming Doom while you're still trying to do like the rest of your game plan. So I find if you are waiting until you have like 10, 15 rune chants, something like that, to play Looming Doom, it's actually too late and you're losing value on, because the game's not going to go for 12 to 15 additional turns after you play Looming Doom. And then also so you're exchanging your rune chants for this Looming Doom with the counters on it. So usually you're trading 1 rune chant for 2 damage from Looming Doom trigger. But if the game is going to end 4 to 5 turns after you play the Looming Doom, then you've basically wasted a lot of that damage that you could have sent with the rune chants. So I find that if you have like 6 to 8 rune chants, and you set up the Looming Doom, and then you go back to popping dragons and sending Arknight Ascendancy of dragons, then you can kind of like manage the board while still presenting arcane damage at Dromai at the same time. It's also a blue 3-block, and you do need a certain number of 3 blocks in the deck, and blues in the deck to do the stuff you want to do. Spellblade Assault, this card is in here just in case you draw it in your first turn. It's going to create 2 rune chants. Usually if you play a non-attack into this, then you're going to end up with at least 3 rune chants. 2 from Spellblade, 1 from Viserai. So it's not bad, like turn 0 play. The other important part of running a certain number of attacks is you need a discard. You need a card to discard from Become the Arknight to go pull the rune chant generators you need. This round's on me. Blue 3-block. It's a non-attack with Go Again. So you draw a card, and then if you play say a Read the Runes or something after this, you get the rune chant generation from Viserai, so it's not bad there. And then this round's on me. I'm trying this out, especially for the ninja matchup, because it turns off the Kodachis. Now, the bad part about this is this round's on me is usually like best if you've threatened some damage, your opponent's blocked, and then you play this round's on me. They're still just drawing up to their 4-card hand or whatever, and they're also getting the -1. So depending on your opponent, like because this deck is not attacking that frequently, you might be giving them like a 5-card hand, a 6-card hand. So you have to be careful about using this. And in those matchups, like Ninja, like another aggressive Viserai, it's horrible to play this rounds on me against a Viserai and give them a huge hand. So lots of times this might just be a 3-block for you. Vexing Malice, 2 arcane damage. Towards the end of the game, maybe your opponent's busted their Achilles accelerator, maybe they've used their bullseye bracers, they don't have any A/B left. You may just need to like throw arcane at your opponent, and maybe they're just running AB1. So this like 2 arcane is, again, just like Rosetta, it's pretty important. So this could be a Rattle Bones target towards the end of the game. And then also, as I mentioned, it's a blue 3-block attack, so you can discard from Become the Arknight. Great card. That's about it for this deck list, this deck tech. I've been playing it a lot on Talishar, and if you're one of my opponents out there, Cook Sensei is what I'm usually going by on Talishar. So apologies if you are trying to run into a more aggressive Viserai, and then you just keep running into this hybrid build that's You might consider it janky, but as I mentioned before, Viserai, we're out here, we're searching for our identity, and to be honest with you, this build is probably just as good as any other build right now. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of present this deck to you guys, give you a little bit of history. Like every time I look at Arknight Ascendancy, I think to myself, man, what a shame. It's a Viserai specialization card. The artwork is amazing. Nobody plays this card. Why can't we play this card? And so, yeah, basically it feels so good to throw it out at your opponent. And then they have to read it closely. What does this card do? Oh, what, it has dominate? It's just a ton of fun. So, yeah, feel free to give it a try. Part of the reason why I'm throwing this deck list out there is because I'd like your guys' feedback. Things to try, ways to improve different matchups, and that sort of thing. Because I think this, I think this deck deserves a place. Maybe it will have a time in a certain meta. Maybe if Dromai goes, Icelander goes. Heck, Bravo's not that far behind. Maybe these decks leave, and Viserai's just sitting around like he has been for 3 years. Looking for his time to shine as the best deck in CC. So I'm gonna be streaming this deck, some gameplay later this evening. I'll set that up with reminders, so if you guys want to join me this evening, come join me. Let's chat about the deck. Let's have a good time, and thanks for watching this video. We'll see you next time.